Even this is your grade 6 history chapter 9 traders kings and pilgrims video 1. You have read about northern black polished ware in chapter 8. This fine pottery, especially bowls and plates, were found from several archaeological sites throughout the subcontinent. South India was very famous for gold, spices, especially pepper and precious stones. Pepper was particularly valued in the Roman Empire, so much so that it was known as black gold. So traders carried many of these goods to Rome in ships across the sea and by land in caravans. There must have been quite a lot of trade, as many Roman gold coins have been found in South India. Traders explored several sea routes. Some of these followed the coast, the others across the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, where sailors took advantage of the monsoon winds to cross the seas more quickly. Then, the southern half of the subcontinent is marked by a long coastline and with hills, plateaus, and river valleys. Amongst the river valleys, that of the river Kaveri is the most fertile land. Chiefs and kings who controlled the river valleys and the coast became rich and powerful. Sangam poems mention the Muvendar. This is a Tamil word meaning three chiefs, used for the heads of three ruling families: Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas, who became very powerful in South India around 2300 years ago. Each of the time, three chiefs had two centers of power, one inland and one of the coast. Of these six cities, two were very important: Puhar and Kaveripattinam, the port of the Cholas, and Madurai, the capital of the Pandyas. The chiefs did not collect regular taxes. Instead, they demanded and received gifts from the people. They also went on military expeditions and collected tribute from neighboring areas. They kept some of the wealth and distributed the rest amongst the supporters, including members of their family, soldiers, and poets. Around 2000 years later, a dynasty known as the Satavahanas became very powerful in Western India. Further, you can refer your map 7, which is in page number 105 in your history content book. The most important ruler of the Satavahanas was Gautamipura Sri Satakarni. We know about him from an inscription composed on behalf of his mother Gautami Balashri. He and other Shatavana rulers were known as Lords of the Dakshinapatha, literally the route leading to the south. Okay. The story of the silk route. The rich, glossy colors of silk as well as its smooth texture make it a highly valued fabric in most societies. Making silk is a complicated process. Raw silk has to be extracted from the cocoons of silkworms. There is a big procedure, right? Which spun into thread and then woven into cloth. Techniques of making silk were first invented in the country China around 7000 years ago. While the methods remained a closely guarded secret of thousands of years, some people from China who went to distant lands on foot, horseback, and on camels carried silk with them. The paths they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. So, the path they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. Sometimes the Chinese rulers sent gifts of silk to rulers of Iran and West Asia, and from there the knowledge of silk spread further west. About 2000 years ago, wearing silk became the fashion amongst rulers and rich people in Rome. It was very expensive as it had to be brought all the way from China along dangerous roads through mountains and deserts. People living along the route often demanded payments for allowing traders to pass through. Some kings tried to control large portion of the route. This was because they could benefit from taxes, tributes, and gifts that were brought by traders traveling along the route. In return, they often protected the traders who passed through their kingdoms from attacks and by robbers. The best known of the rulers who controlled the Silk Route were the Kushanas, who ruled over Central Asia and Northwest India around 2000 years ago. Their two major centers of power were Peshawar and Madura. Taxila was also included in their kingdom. During their rule, a branch of Silk Route extended from Central Asia down to the seaports at the mouth of the river Indus, from where silk was shipped westwards to the Roman Empire. The Kushanas were amongst the earliest rulers of the subcontinent to issue gold coins. They were used by traders along the Silk Route. Then the spread of Buddhism. The most famous Kushana ruler was Kanishka, who ruled around 1900 years ago. He organized a Buddhist council where scholars met and discussed important matters. Ashwagosha, a poet who composed a biography of Buddha, the Buddha Charita, lived in his court. Ashwagosha and other Buddhist scholars now began writing in Sanskrit, a new form of Buddhism known as Mahayana Buddhism, or the new form of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism now developed. This had two distinct features. Earlier, the Buddha's presence was shown in the sculpture by using certain signs. For instance, his attainment of enlightenment was shown by sculptures of the peepal tree. Now, statues of the Buddha were made. Many of these were in Mathura, while others were made in Taxila. The second change was a belief of both bodhisattvas. These were supposed to be persons who had attained enlightenment. Once they attained enlightenment, they could live in complete isolation and meditate in peace. However, instead of doing that, they remained in the world to teach and help other people. The worship of bodhisattvas became very popular at the time and spread throughout Central Asia, China, and later on to Korea and Japan. Buddhism also spread to western and southern India, where dozens of caves were hollowed out of hills for monks to live in. Some of these caves were made on the orders of kings and queens, others by merchants and farmers. These were often located near passes through the Western Ghats. Roads connecting prosperous ports on the coast with cities in the Deccan ran through these passes. Traders probably halted in these cave monasteries during their traveling times. Buddhism also spread southeastwards to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. The older form of Buddhism, known as the Theravada Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism was very popular in these areas. The quest of the pilgrims. As traders journeyed to distant lands in caravans and ships, pilgrims often traveled with them. The best known of these are the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims, Faxian, who came to the subcontinent about 1600 years ago, Xuanzang, who came around 1400 years ago, and Ai Qing, who came about 50 years after Kuanzang. They came to visit places associated with the life of the Buddha, as well as famous monasteries. Each of these pilgrims left an account of his journey. They wrote of the dangers they encountered on their travels, which often took years, of the countries and monasteries that they have visited, and the books they carried back with them. And Xuanzang, who took the land route back to China through the northwest and central Asia, carried back with him statues of the Buddha made of gold, silver, and sandalwood, and over 6,600 manuscripts loaded on the backs of 20 horses. Over 50 manuscripts were lost when the boat on which he was crossing the Indus capsized. He spent the rest of his life translating the remaining manuscripts from Sanskrit into Chinese. Okay, the beginning of Bhakti. This was also the time when the worship of certain deities, which became a central feature of later Hinduism, gained an importance. These deities included Shiva, Vishnu, and goddesses such as Durga. These deities were worshipped through bhakti, and an idea that became very popular at that time. Bhakti is generally understood as a person's devotion to his or her chosen deity. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so-called higher low caste, man or woman, could follow the path of bhakti. The idea of bhakti is present in the Bhagavad Gita, a sacred book of the Hindus, which is related to God, which is included in the Mahabharata. For that, you can refer to chapter 11. In this Krishna, the God, asked Arjuna, his devotee and friend, to abandon all dharmas and take refuge in him. As only he can set Arjuna free from every evil, this form of worship gradually spread to different parts of the country. Those who followed the system of bhakti emphasized devotion and individual worship of a god and goddess rather than performance of the elaborate sacrifices. According to this system or belief, if a devotee worships the chosen deity with a pure heart, the deity will appear in the form in which he or she may desire. So the deity could be thought of as a human being, lion, tree, or any other form. Once this idea gained acceptance, artists made beautiful images of these deities. Then, because these deities were special, these images of the deity were often placed within special homes. So you will learn more about the temples in chapter 11. Bhakti inspired some of the best expressions in art, sculpture, poetry, and architecture. Hindu. What does the word Hindu mean? The word Hindu, like the term India, is derived from the river Indus. It was used by Arabs and Iranians to refer to people who lived in the east of river. and to their cultural practices, including their religious beliefs. Okay, children, based on this video, there are few questions. Answer the following question. Which spice was more valued the most during the rule of Roman Empire? Who was the most important ruler of the Satavahanas? What was the new form of Buddhism called? The idea of bhakti is present in the Das book of Hindus. I mean, you have read the holy book of Hindus. Describe the word Hindu. Hindu. For this question, you can refer content book page number 100 for answer. Thanks for watching the video. Keep watching.